Okay, today we're going to go over the Unit 4 practice test. I am going to split this into two sections. The first one will be over the first 2 pages of the practice test, and then the second video will be over the last 3 pages. So the first problem says identify the rate of change of each of the following linear functions. So we're going to find the rate of change, which is also our slope of each of the functions. So for our graph, we find the rate of change by doing our rise over our run. So on this graph, I'm going to pick 2 points. So this will be a point, and this will be a point. So I'm rising 1, 2, and I'm running 1, 2, 3. I'm going down, so this would be a -2. So your slope on this line would be -2/3. Okay, the next one, we find a table. So we have to find our change in our y over our change in our x. So on our change in y, from 6 to 4, we go down 2. And on x, we go from 0 to 3, so we go up 3. So it's going to always be your change in y over your change in x. Change in y is -2. Your change in x is 3. So -2/3 is your slope. And on the last one, we have it in standard form. So we have to rearrange this equation into y equals mx plus b form. So my first step is going to be to add 8x. It's going to give me 2y equals -8 plus 8x. I cannot combine those, the -8 and the 8x, because they're not like terms. My last step is to divide by 2. I'm going to get y equals -8 divided by 2 is -4. And then 8 divided by 2 is 4. And then bring down your x. Now, if you remember, the number next to our x is our slope. So the 4 would be our slope. So which function is the most steep? This would be the one that has the largest number. So the last number 3 would be 4. Next one, it says graph linear function. So I'm going to start off by my slope. So if you remember, if you have plus, if there's nothing added or subtracting on the end, it would be a y-intercept of 0. So that's going to be my first point. It's going to be 0, 0. And then I have my rise over my run. But since it's negative, I'm going to go down 3 over 4. You can also go up 3 and to the left 4. So you can go in either direction. Then I'm going to draw my line. That would be my line. Sorry, I'm going to put arrows on the end of it. So that would be my function. Now it's asking, describe the transformations to the parent function. So the first thing as I'm going to look at is there's a negative in front. So this means a reflection over the x-axis. I next look at what my slope is. So my slope on this problem is 3/4. So since it's a fraction, it's going to be a vertical compression by 3/4. And then the last thing I look at, did it shift up or down on my y-axis from my origin of 0, 0? It did not. It's still at my origin, so I do not have a shift up or a shift down. Okay, on to the next page. First problem, it says write equations to represent each situation if possible. If not possible, state not possible. For the A and B, there can be multiple options, so keep that in mind. The first one says 2 different linear functions that go through the origin. If they go through the origin, your y-intercept will be 0. So these 2 equations just need to have different slopes. So an example, I could have y equals 2x and y equals -3x. Since my y-intercept is 0, this would just be plus 0. Or you don't have to have anything on it at all. Your slopes just have to be different. Next one says 2 different linear equations that have the same steepness. So if they have the same steepness, they need to have the same slope. So I could do y equals 2x plus 5. And since my slope is the only thing that has to be the same, I'm just going to be changing my y-intercept. So my second equation could be y equals 2x minus 5. So the only thing that is different is each of these is my y-intercept. My slope has to be the same since it's the same steepness. Okay, next problem, our word problem. It says Miss Eiler opened a bank account for her daughter Alicia and deposited $750 for her to use while she was away at school for spending in gas. Alicia spends $70 each week. Once the account reaches $150, it freezes. The amount of money left in her account after X number of weeks, so amount of money left in her account after X number of weeks, can be modeled by the function f of x equals 750 minus 75x. So our first step is to graph this function. So a couple of key things I want to point out before we start graphing. First, this is our function, 750 minus 75x. So one of those is my slope and one of those is my y-intercept. The amount of money left in her account is going to be important and after X number of weeks. And if it freezes at 150, we know that this graph is going to stop. So we're going to start by having a title. We're going to do bank account. And then on our y-axis is going to be amount of money. And then our X is going to be number of weeks. So our X can go up by ones. And our Y is going to go up by your slope. So I'm going to go up 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay, we're only going to go up 13. Okay, and then I said our Y needs to go up by our slope. And if we remember from our equation, our slope is negative 75. So it just needs to go up by 75. So 75. Why did that just freeze? 150. 225. 300. 375. 450. 525, 600, 675, 750, 825, 900. I'm only going to go up there. So next I'm going to graph. So my y-intercept was 750. So that's where my graph is going to start, at 750. And then I'm going down because it's negative. So I have a negative slope, so it's going down by $75 each week. So I'm going to go down $75 and over 1 week. Now, if you remember, it's going to freeze at a point. So it's going to stop when I'm at $150. Then I'm going to draw my line. Now, the next thing I'm going to look at is what is my domain. So if you remember, your domain is your x value. So my x is less than or equal to or greater than or equal to. So what are my x values? It goes from 0 all the way up to 8. So I'm going to have x is greater than or equal to 0 and less than or equal to 8. Now my y is also going to have a range because it starts and stops. So it goes from 750. It's going to be less than that, and it is going to be greater than 150. So I'm going to have 150 is less than or equal to y, which is less than or equal to 750. And that would be our domain and our range. And if you remember, our range is our y value. Okay, let me know if you have any questions on that. Let's move on to the next problem. It says the graph y equals f of x. This is the graph of y equals f of x, right? The equation of the graph of y equals 3 f of x plus 1 and graph. So we have to first find the equation of this graph. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to find my y-intercept and my slope. So my slope is negative, and it's my rise over my run. So I'm rising 1 and running 3. So it's going to be negative 1/3. And then my y-intercept is negative 2. So this is my original equation. So I'm then going to take this and plug it in for my f of x. So a new equation, I'm going to have 3 times negative 1/3 x minus 2 plus 1. So my first step is going to be distribute. So 3 times negative 1/3 is going to be negative 1x minus 6 plus 1. Then I'm going to combine like terms. So I'm going to get y equals negative 1x minus 5. Then I'm going to graph this new line. So my y-intercept is negative 5. So let's go down 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then my slope is negative 1. So I'm going down 1. So down 1 over 1. Down 1 over 1. And you go in the opposite direction. And then I'm going to graph my new line. My points. And that's going to be my new line. Let me know if you guys have any questions on that. Next page. Graph the linear inequality x plus y is greater than or equal to 4. So it kind of helps you by saying it needs its x and y intercept. Oops, sorry. So in order to find the x and y intercept, we're going to plug in 0 for our x and 0 for our y. So if I bring my equation, I'm going to get x plus 0 is greater than or equal to 4. So x is greater than or equal to 4. This is going to be my y-intercept of 4, 0. Then for my y, I'm going to do 0 plus y is greater than or equal to 4. So y is greater than or equal to 4. And this is going to be my y-intercept. I'm going to graph those 2 points. So I have 4, 0 and 0, 4. Now, since this is an inequality, I have to figure out what line I'm going to do. Since it has a line underneath, it is going to be a solid line. So I'm going to graph my line through my 2 points. So it's going to be a solid line because there's a line underneath. Then I have to figure out which way to shade. So I'm going to plug in 0 into my equation. So I'm going to plug in the point 0, 0. So I'm going to have 0 plus 0 is greater than or equal to 4. So 0 is greater than or equal to 4. Is this true or false? This is false. So that means I shade in the opposite direction. So I'm going to be shading on this side of my graph. Okay, let me know if you have any questions on that. Next problem says 2 students use point slope to find an equation that describes the line with a slope of 2/3 through the points 6 minus 9. Who is correct? So this is our slope. And these are our points. So I'm gonna plug it into the equation for myself. So it's my y minus my y1. So this would be plus 9 equals 2/3 times x minus my x1. And my x1 is it's positive, so I'm just going to make it negative. So that would be my equation. Who did this So Jill is right. Jack is incorrect because he plugged in the wrong points. He plugged in his y for x and his 6 for y. So Jack plugged in the wrong points. Okay, going on to the next problem. Write an equation of the line that passes through the points, -3, 6, and -1, 2. So our first thing we're going to do is we're going to label our points. x1, y1, x2, y2. And we're going to find our slope by stacking them. So I have x and my y. So I get -3, 6, and -1, -2. I'm going to find my difference. So from 6 to -2, I'm going down 8. And from 3 to -1, I'm going up 2. So it's your change in y over your change in x. My change in y is -8. My change in x is 2. So my slope is going to be -4. And then I'm going to pick a set of points to plug into my equation. So my equation is y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. So I'm going to do y minus my y1, because I'm going to pick this first set of points. It doesn't matter which set of points you pick. Minus 6 equals my slope of -4 times x minus the -3, so that would become a +3. Solve this. Distribute. Your y minus 6 equals -4x minus 12. And then add 6. So my final equation would be y equals -4x minus 6. Okay, let's go on to the next page. The Simonson Stuco has decided to order t-shirts for all students who would like one. The t-shirt company charges $50 up front. So it's a one-time fee of $50 and $10 per shirt. Write an equation in slope-intercept form. So, and make sure you define your variables. So my equation is going to be a y equals our mx plus b. So it's $10 per shirt. So that is going to be my number with the variable next to it. So that's my slope. And then the 50 is going to be a constant. That's what I'm starting at no matter how many shirts I buy. So your x is your number of shirts because that's going to change each time. And your y is going to be your total cost. Give a reasonable domain for this situation. A domain is your x value. So an x, you can have anything from 0 to 100 shirts. So it could be x is greater than or equal to 0. Would a domain of -55 be reasonable? So could you have a -55 number of shirts? No. So no, because you cannot have a negative number of shirts. Okay, next problem. If Stuco spends $350 on shirts, is it possible to have ordered 30 shirts? So there's two different ways you can do this. You can plug in 30/50 for y and solve for x, or you can plug in 30 for x and solve for y. I'm going to plug in 30 for x. So I'm going to have 10 times 30 plus the 50. So 3 times 30 is 300 plus 50. This gives me 350. So if they order 30 shirts, are they going to be spending for 350? Yes. So you can write yes. This is possible. Okay, describe the transformation. So I first look at, is there a negative? There is, so this is going to be a reflection over the x-axis. Then I look at my slope. My slope is a whole number. So So it's going to be a vertical stretch by 4. And then I look, what is my y-intercept? It's negative, so it's going to be a vertical, it's going to be a shift down by 7. Okay, that is the first 4 pages. I am going to do another video for the second half, so this will be the test that will be, this will be the second part of the test on Tuesday. Let me know if you have any questions.